Hello, you privacy enthusiasts out there. We have our monthly Keep Data Private get together. We have Marcel,
Hello.
and my name is Daniela. Hello. Today's topic is around AI and data privacy. More specifically, whether data privacy laws, such as the GDPR in Europe, whether those laws and regulations hold up innovation, and innovation specifically geared towards AI, robotics, so anything that's related to technology in the future. What's your opinion? And maybe Marcel, if you want to start.
Well, I think you can look at it from both sides initially. So there's a lot of arguing that the EU kind of missed the boat with the dot-com boom 25 years ago. The fact that all the internet companies, bar a few, are in the US and Europe has barely any. I think the notable exception to that one is the music streaming service. I won't mention the name, but it's based in Sweden. The thought is that we need to make sure that in Europe that we don't miss the boat on the AI side of things, and if we have regulations that hold us back, then we need to make sure those regulations aren't hamstringing innovative entrepreneurs from going forward. So I think the article that was linked to the discussion topic about GDPR specifically holding back AI innovation was an interesting one. However, it was interesting in multiple aspects. Firstly, it asserted the fact that GDPR was holding AI back, but it also did hint at the fact that it wasn't just GDPR. It had a lot to do with the culture within the country. So if the culture is one of innovative expression, where there are certain things that we're holding innovative entrepreneurial innovation back, that was things like the hierarchical structures within the country, where the people are used to listening and serving big organizations, whether they are risk takers and things like that, had a bigger role to play than whether the regulations, specifically GDPR, were holding AI back. So I think it's more than just regulations. I think it's a lot bigger picture as to what a country and the EU as a whole does to support smaller businesses, support entrepreneurs, support innovation. And I think those kind of regulations are what holds people back. That all being said, I think there's another side to things, which is AI the same race that we have in the dot-com boom? Is it important that the companies that get a head start now will be the companies that go forward and become the winners going in the long run? And I think the dot-com bubble and burst was a big illustrative that it's not whoever comes first. The companies that were riding high on the dot-com boom before the bust are not necessarily the companies that won at the end of the day. Also, the majority of those companies, even if they were a winner amongst them, right, also failed. So do we really need to be amongst the first? Do we really need to support the bubble and get all the innovation going forward to get AI going forward? Or do we use regulation as it should be used, which is to protect the consumer? Now, GDPR, when it was introduced, was designed specifically to protect the consumer against companies who are using people's data however they saw fit, without the user being informed, without the user giving consent, without the user even knowing that their data was being kept by the organization. So GDPR allowed people to control what companies did with their data. I mean, the control is secondary, but in the sense the company still does what they want, but you could at least specify that you didn't want your data kept or have it deleted, or what they could, you had to explicitly consent to what they could use the data for, assuming the company was complying with the regulations. So those kind of regulations with data and personal data that we obviously speak about a lot on this channel is what's important here. And the argument with with AI and holding GDPR specifically holding it back is that for the AI models to work, they need vast quantities of data. And if they need to sweep up as much data as possible, they shouldn't be restricted by the consent or the need for consent to pick up that data in the first place. Because if as soon as they have to hold back on the ability to collect data, then they're going to be reduce the amount of data they can collect. Because if they have to ask permission every time they get a certain amount of data, that takes time and reduces the amount of data they can collect overall. Even if the total quantity of data ultimately wouldn't be affected, it's the fact that it's a time-consuming process to seek the consent aspect. And the same argument has been used to override copyright law. So it's not just personal data that we're worried about. It's also all the artwork that's being created or written work that's being created, all the work that falls under copyright that is just being swept up by the data, hoovering up the data on the internet and just using it without seeking permission, without asking the copyright holder for permission to use that work, and arguing that it's fair use. Now, we know that people in the past who've tried to make copies of data have been charged with that copyright violation, with stealing the data. There's also the ongoing case about Google, scanning books and saying, "Oh, we're just going to keep the data." I mean, there are good arguments for keeping records and keeping copies of the data. And I don't want to go into whether copyright is a good thing or not going forward, but it has already been brought up that the fact that all this data is being hoovered up without complying with the existing regulations around copyright. And of course, if you don't even have things like GDPR, like they don't have in the US, then all that data is going to be hoovered up and sucked into the AI. So we've got that balancing act to play as to how much is required and how much do regulations stop countries and the culture within countries stopping that innovation, and how much is the regulation protecting people and their data and what they can do. So there's a lot of aspects to it that I think are worth discussing.
Yes, I completely agree that whilst the headline sounds quite simple and easy, there's a lot to it. My thinking always is, well, who does it benefit? Who does the article really benefit? Who could be behind it? Who would want to do away with data privacy laws? One example being GDPR. Who would be the direct benefactor? And the short answer is AI companies. As simple as that. They don't have to put any effort or money towards getting the data anymore. Because if the regulation is being put in place and they actually have to put effort in getting to exactly the data they can use without taking too much, then that will cost money. If they spend more money, the profit margins are going to shrink. It's very simple. It's one of finance rather than a technical issue. At this point, it's not even a data privacy issue. It's just a financial topic to be talked about.
But I think it's more than finance. I think it's also the time it takes. AI companies and the world at large thinks that the AI race is on, and anything that's holding a company back means that they're going to lose the AI race. And I think the thinking around it being a race, and therefore just remove all the restrictions so that we can win the race, is the flawed thinking. Because yes, there's money, and yes, it takes time to get consent. But I think the real argument for removing those restrictions is it's just going to take time. To ask people for consent is just going to take time, and we don't have time. We're in a race to get to the finish line first. And I have a real problem with thinking that AI is a race. We've already removed so many safeguards. OpenAI releasing ChatGPT onto the internet was one of the first things they talked about from an AI safety point of view, is that we shouldn't release AI into the wild until we knew how it was going to behave. And yet OpenAI just released ChatGPT onto the internet, let it hoover everything up and get let going. So those restrictions are already being erased. And I think going forward, if we're arguing that what we need to do is remove more restrictions, right, so we can speed up the progress in AI, we don't know what the long-term consequences are going to be. If people's private health data, for example, is being hoovered up by this AI, and somebody asks a question, what does so-and-so, health interests are or whatever, that the AI will be able to respond. I mean, it was outrageous that the US President, Donald Trump, was basically reading through people's Ozempic use
Yes.
live on air at the White House desk. So-and-so is on Ozempic, so-and-so. That is the kind of health data, right, that has been fed into AI. Right, you don't even need the president to read it out. You should just be able to ask, is Donald Trump on Ozempic? Because that health data will have been hoovered up before, and it should be able to respond, having the data without having to guess. You're laughing.
I'm laughing because I have a guess on whether their president is on Ozempic or not. Just look at how miserable he is sometimes, and then he looks a bit thinner. Make your own educated decision out there. Yes, and again, for me, it comes down to a financial decision. If an insurance company knows what really is happening with your health, they don't have to pay out anymore. It's a big, big financial driver for insurance companies to know exactly what you're up to. Full stop. They
Yeah,
are
but
saving payouts. It's again, it always comes down to money. And that's why I agree with you that it's not a race or a game, say that we're a game where only one can win. I agree with you that we should look upon it in a different way and that it's not quite like it. Because I don't think there is a finish line as such. I don't think we can even start to understand what, in the future, far distant future, what a super intelligence can actually achieve. So all we can think about is the next step on that path, or a couple of steps, and some of them may lead to a dead end. Some of them may hang around as a remnant of the past and provide a little bit of enjoyment. But I'm not entirely sure that large language models are AI as such. They are part of the puzzle, yes. They are one step in that direction to see what we can do, yes. But I'm not sure that those are the end of it. So racing to hand out all of my personal data or hand out whether Mr. Trump is on Ozempic, I don't think benefits the world in the long run. I don't even think it's going to benefit any of the major companies in the short run, let alone the long run. So I agree that it's not a race. My opinion is that there is no finish line as such established yet, because there will always be something else after. It's always going to be another goal. Once we have achieved that, then there will be something else. And if people want to think about a race, well, then there will be another race after. And I do think that some guidelines around data privacy are a good idea, because simply by making it just a little bit harder for companies to get to the data, it may make them think about, well, how much data and which data do they really want and need and for which purpose. So, yes, on the one hand, it's making it harder for companies to benefit from the data, but at the same time, it's going to make them think differently about it. So if they don't need data, why should they spend or waste money and time on it? And in my head, I'm equating time to money in this respect, because if they have more people working on it, spending more time on it, that ultimately means either money spent on income of those people as salary, or few or less profit because they can go to market only 6 months, a year later or something. So to me, it's a financial thought experiment more than anything else. From a technical perspective, all of those data restrictions or data guidances or guidelines, laws, all of them can be implemented. It's not a problem. There are smart people out there who can sit down and think through it on how to make it happen. So it literally comes down to money and who's going to benefit from it. And yes, I do think that Trump is on Ozempic. Just look at the pictures. My opinion only.
I question whether the AI race is just the current race or the current technological boom, and that there will be another one after that. I agree that the ChatGPT, the large language models, are not AI as artificial intelligence, as as an intelligence itself. It's a predictive engine working out what's most likely to be said based on the data that it has. Um, when it does become artificial intelligence as opposed to just a guessing game or guessing engine, will be the last technological development that mankind is in charge of, because AI will ultimately then become the engine for generating new innovation going forward. How that takes shape is the question, and I think that's what the races mentality is about. You know, if you are the organization that develops the AI, or the country, or the collection of countries that develop the artificial intelligence that then gets to think for itself, then it will be the one that dominates. AIs, or 8 trillion AIs, all competing and working, with each other, against each other, we don't know. But I do think that once the artificial intelligence is there, that going forward, it will be what drives the innovation. So I think the racing mentality that we have now is going to die with artificial intelligence, because it will become its own innovation engine. So how countries or companies, etc., make money going forward will change. So I don't think there will be just another race, coming on, new technological bubble going in the future. But that's, again, when you talk about personal opinions, is my personal opinion. So it's the thinking that it's a race, I think, is the flaw, because whoever wins is not actually going to be a winner, because that AI will dominate. But it's also just about regulation, and how regulation is used to protect, the individual, to protect the people that are not in control of how the technology is being developed, are not in control of how the data is being used, are not in control, for with anything, and how they are protected. We have regulations in place to protect individuals, because the individuals aren't able, to have that information to be able to make informed decisions going forward. You rely on the fact that regulations have done, or enforcement of the regulations specifically, have been done, to have those protections in place, so that that your data is being managed appropriately, and if it's food products, for example, that certain chemicals are not being used in those food products. So we need regulations to protect individuals, because people can't manage, or can't even gather the information that's required to make informed decisions. And I think appropriate regulation is necessary. And I think the GDPR regulation, which took years, let's not forget, to put in place to protect the individual, right, are extremely important, right, and have been very well received by the people that it seeks to protect. There's people who want to abuse the data and want to use data however they want, to send you spam emails or whatever it might be, right? Just dislike it because it restricts them. But that's the whole point. It's supposed to protect the individuals. So I think it's incredibly important that regulation is in place and stays in place, and is not just thrown aside to support businesses, whether it's a financial incentive or a time incentive, or whether time is money, just to feed the race, to try and not fall behind on this one.
Yes. And all of those are really good points. And And I hope if you're listening and watching this, then I hope you have thought through it yourself as well. So I have been working on a GDPR project at one point. I have a little bit of an insight. I'm not an expert. I am using it actively myself. If I believe a company was collecting too much data, I gently and kindly ask them, as per GDPR, to delete all of my data from all of the systems. I get interesting comments back on occasion, and I'm very glad that the regulation is in place. It's very helpful. And I do think that it does not stop any innovation whatsoever. It's just making it a different game. It's not a race, in my opinion. It's more of a game or a thought experiment. Let's call it that. It's more of a thought experiment of how to get to the service or product, the AI service or product that a company wants to get to. And it's simply changing the way you have to think about it. So the regulation, in my opinion, doesn't change that. It just changes how you have to go about it. And as I said, there are very smart people out there. I'm sure they'll find a way. Full stop. I do think it still needs to happen. I do think it will be an exciting few years until we know how AI is going to develop. Um, I agree that there may be more than one AI in the next few years. And when I talk about I really mean it like that, like a proper engine that can come up with solutions itself. And even if the question is how much is 2 plus 2, that it comes up with the correct solution is a good one. And comes up with the solution itself, not by regurgitating what the majority of people have come up with in the past. So I do think that will happen. I am in favor of AI. To be honest, I'm a big fan and supporter of progress. The reason is that with progress, things will get better. It will always get better. And if you don't believe me, and yes, the last few years have been a bit rough on a lot of us, but if you don't think the progress makes things better, then ask yourself, when was the last time you took your dirty laundry down to the river and beat it against the rock? As simple as that. It's been a while. Even in my case, it's been a while. So things get better with progress. I do think better technology in the information space, in the intelligence space, will make things better. And I'm just currently today, I've been thinking about cancer treatments for various reasons. And there is this heap of technology and heap of knowledge coming out right now, saving in the future will be saving millions of lives. Currently, hundreds, because the data isn't there yet, because there haven't been enough people through trials and studies. But there is really good progress in a lot of those studies. And with more data, with more intelligence, more people will be saved, and they then can contribute to a better world for everyone else. And again, the problem I see here is the contribution of those people. It's going to be a financial question again. Who's going to pay for them? What jobs are they going to have? And that's for me the sticking point. Coming back to where I started, and I know I'm a bit of a broken record here. Progress is good, in my opinion. If you disagree, do get in touch and tell us why you don't think so. But I do believe wholeheartedly progress is good, technology is good. AI, once we've figured it out, will be a good thing. Now, between now and once we've figured it out, a few years will pass. There will be some ups, there will be some downs, some sideways. A lot of initiatives won't pan out because, well, they can't make the numbers work and the company goes bankrupt. Happens as well. Have a look around the news at the moment, how much some companies are spending on data centers, for example, energy costs and things like that. Just go through the world with open eyes. None of those companies have I seen mentioned in connection with data privacy. And that is where I start asking questions. And that's why I started with who's benefiting from it. Once technology is there and AI is there is the real potential that we will benefit. We will be healthier, we will live longer. We've always talked about we can move to a more organic, sustainable lifestyle because technology can make that happen compared to what we are going through right now. So it's all good. We can or we could potentially benefit in the future. But initially, the immediate benefit is to companies, and that is expressed in dollar signs or euro signs, really, but dollar signs more than likely. So who's benefiting and why do they want free access to the data?
Exactly. I think it also brings us back to the central point of this channel, which is keeping data private. We've always talked about if you don't control the data, then you don't know what's going to happen to it. It's basically public data. And if data is being stored on servers today, even if you are being protected by GDPR, there's nothing that's actually going to stop that GDPR from being removed. We can continue to ask our politicians to make sure that it stays and make sure that those regulations stay in place. But if that law is removed, if the GDPR regulation is basically dismantled, then all your data on all those company servers is up for grabs. And that's what we keep saying on this channel. If you put your data out there, if you allow your data to be synced up into the cloud, right, you no longer control that data, right? Even if there are regulations in place, even if you do live in the EU, even if those servers are physically located in the EU, right, that doesn't mean that it's going to stay safe forever. So I think everybody needs to really use this as a wake up moment. If you don't think you need to worry about your data and whether your data is private, whether you control the data, or if you let data be synced up into the cloud, right, and you lose control of that data, think about your data. Think about what you want to keep private. Right? It's up to you as an individual to keep that data private. It's up to you as an individual to encrypt that data and keep control over it and the password to that encryption. It's your responsibility to keep that data private. You cannot rely on organizations. You cannot rely on regulations to continue to protect that data for you into the future, for the long distance future at least. Keep your data private. Really think about what you're making public. And when you put things up into the cloud, you ultimately may be making that public.
Yes, yes, exactly. I'm not sure I can add anything and sound anywhere near as smart as you do. Now, given that you're still listening, I'm assuming you're interested in data privacy. If at any point you think, oh, I didn't know that, please go and read up, educate yourself, talk to other people, share the word. A lot of people are of the opinion that it does not concern them, or more often but there's nothing I can do about it, so I may as well. Or my nearly said my favorite excuse, but everyone else is on WhatsApp. Well, yes, if everyone else remains on WhatsApp, then they will stick to it too. But as soon as one or two people say, actually, I prefer Signal because it's encrypted, then slowly but surely things will start to change. And then there can be real change in the world. But it does take a lot of people to start waking up, start thinking about it, of what it really means, and start taking action. And that's why my call to action is to educate yourself in terms of what actually is going on in the world, what does it mean, how it's going to influence you in your life, and also have those conversations with people around you. And when I say people around you, it could be anyone. There are a multitude of bank holidays or just days of work over the next few weeks and months into the end of the year, at least in the northern hemisphere and also some in the southern hemisphere. Use them, connect with people, have a chat over coffee. Don't get into a fight over it, but simply have a chat of what it means to them and if they're not worried. Sometimes just simply asking, you're not worried about X, Y, Z, then that makes people think and listen up a little bit. And even if you think, it didn't sink in or they don't care, sometimes just having a conversation or bringing up a topic makes people think. And when they go back home, then they will think when they're on their own. They may not admit to other people to the face, But when they're by themselves, they may actually start looking things up. So that's why it's always, always, always important to have the conversation in an appropriate manner, of course. So that's my call to action to you. Have those conversations, make sure that you know what you're talking about, and other people start thinking about it too.
Sounds good.
Good. That was my part for this month. In December, now our usual call would fall on the 23rd of December, which we realize is really close to some holidays out there. So we have decided to not have a December call, and we will be seeing you on the fourth Tuesday in January. If possible, I will put out a quick short video the week before and just talk about one of the topics that at that point will be important. If you have any suggestions for topics, or if you would like to have a pre recorded video with us, do get in touch. We're very much open to that, but we would need to have a bit of input from your side as well. If not, I hope all of you are safe. Stay safe. Keep yourself safe. Keep your family and friends safe. And we will see you in the new year. Anything else, Marcel?
No, it sounds good.
And with that, have a good day and see you in January. Bye bye.